The views and opinions expressed during Real Black.
Hello, welcome to Spare Change News TV. My name is Sam Baltrusis. I am the editor-in-chief of Spare Change News. Joining me today is the one and the only Vincent Flanagan. He is my boss. He's the executive director of the Homeless Empowerment Project and also the executive director of Spare Change News. How are you today, Vincent?
I'm fine.
Good
Nice to be here.
Good to have you on the show. So we have some sad news. Sorry, some sad news. Vincent is actually leaving later this month, going to New York City. So we're looking for a new executive director. So tell me, how is the search going for the new executive director?
The search committee has gotten a number of applicants. They're scheduling interviews. Hopefully we'll have someone for a period of time for there to be a transition, which I'm very much looking forward to doing.
So Vincent is going to be very difficult to replace. He's done a fantastic job since I've been editor-in-chief. So looking back, so tell me, how did you get involved? So it's been several years that you've been a part of Spare Change News.
I came in May of 2012. I had left the court system, which I've been with for 25 years. I was a lawyer. I was in legal and managerial positions. I was doing consulting work, and I wanted to do volunteer work, which I did with another homeless organization. The vendor I buy the paper from mentioned that the Homeless Empowerment Project was looking for a new executive director. I looked at the job description, thought it sounded interesting, applied, and was hired.
Kind of similar, like my coming into Spare Change and the Homeless Empowerment Project was from prayer. So like we have various ways that we end up working with Spare Change News. And in many ways, you know, Vincent's story is kind of similar to a lot of people who I work with. It's a calling. You're called to help out this organization. It's a fantastic organization. It helps so many people. So looking back on your career, like how has it changed over the past few years?
I think I realized that you can't do this job by yourself, and that it's really important to network and get out there and meet as many people as you can, especially people in foundations and in businesses that you can go to for revenue or for advice. I also think I realized the value of using volunteers and not just the staff we have, because we can't afford many people. And I think I realized how much more important it was for us to have a social media presence, to have a good website, and because, you know, the world is changing and print journalism is unfortunately dying. And although we still are a print paper, we have a very good website now, and we have a good social media presence, and I didn't realize the importance of that when I first came.
So I agree with Vincent. I think that what we do very well is we're actually moving to the next generation. The landscape of print is changing. And you know, how do we do that? And a lot of it is making a stronger online presence. Some organizations. I went to Seattle for the INSP, which is the International Network of Street Newspapers convention, and I met with other executive directors and editors throughout the world who do what I do, and it was like a family. We and I got a lot of ideas for Spare Change in the future. One idea is cashless payments, possibly having people pay for the newspaper with a credit card. We're looking into that. Another idea is possibly to go weekly at some point. If you look at Real Change in Seattle and Street Roots in Portland, a lot of the other papers, they had to go to the weekly setup to be able to move forward. So I see that happening with Spare Change. I definitely think we're on a trajectory in a really good direction. So we talked a little bit earlier about sort of like the little things that make a big difference, like people, like the paper changing their lives. Get any anecdotes from stories of people that you interacted with over the years that have just really affected you in a positive way?
Recently, a young man who sold Spare Change News encountered my wife. He was in a sanitation truck, and he informed her that he now had a full-time job with the city.
That's
and
awesome.
He said, if it wasn't for what Vincent taught me, I wouldn't have had the courage to go and apply for the job. And you know, that really made me feel like, well, I did something worthwhile. I helped change a person's life. And vendors who come and say, you know, the ability to sit and talk with you have helped me work out both personal problems and problems on the job. And yeah, it's very rewarding to not just sell papers, but also to affect people's lives in that way.
And the thing is, this is a job. So the people that sell Spare Change News are vendors, and they sell a job. And like, what are some of the misconceptions people have about the paper coming in, and how have you tried to combat that?
Some people honestly thought, you know, oh, it's panhandling with a gimmick. You know,
I've heard that.
they throw this paper together and where they're really panhandling. A great deal of effort has gone into dispelling that myth, both by talking to groups. I talk to anyone who will listen to me, and by, you know, having the vendors inform the people of what's in the papers so that people know it's a real product, and by producing a really quality paper, which you've done. You've really produced an excellent quality paper, and, you know, word gets around, and, you know, people realize, oh, you know, these are people who are selling a product like anyone else sells a product, whether it be the Boston Globe or a shirt or, you know, or a TV. They're there selling a product, and it's their job. I mean, I actually heard people say to our vendors, "Get a job."
Yeah.
And, you know, the answer is they have a job. This is their job.
And I think what's great about this job and talking to the vendors is some of them have been around for years.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, like from, you know, from the 90s, and some are new. If I can give from my perspective, any advice, if you're coming in as a vendor with Spare Change, give it some time. I think that the biggest thing that we have is we have people that are going to come in passionately, and it takes some time to build up readers and engage with your audience. So people that have been around for years, they have the people that they're regulars that kind of come and buy the paper. We have a lot of new ones coming in, right? New vendors?
Yeah, this year I made a particular effort to increase our sales force, both because I think our sales force was aging out. Some of our vendors had been selling for 19 years, and they were getting old and tired, and, you know, and honestly weren't up to being out there for long hours. So I made a point to try to recruit more vendors and recruit some younger vendors, and which I hope will help us reach the younger audience, and to also open up new sites. To you know, when the paper opened, it was a small area that they sold in, and now I've been trying to push into East Boston, further into Southie, into Newton, and, you know, couldn't be more right. It's important when we're recruiting new vendors to have them understand that, you know, they need to pick a site with us and take the time and patience to develop that site. And we recruited a lot of a lot of good new people, and they're performing well, and hopefully that will reflect, or has been reflecting in the increased number of sales.
I'm so excited. I mean, I'm sad that you're leaving, Vincent, but I'm so excited about the direction that the paper's going. I feel energized talking to other papers. We're known all over the world. Like, this paper it's the oldest continuously operated newspaper in North America, and it's time for us to step up and let other people know, like, that we're good, and that we matter. And I'm really excited the direction we're going. I think the content has been a lot better. I think that we tackle issues that are not covered in the mainstream media. So as far as, like, the issues, what are some of the issues that you think are important for me as editor to cover?
I think most important for you to cover are what is happening to attempt to deal with the problem of homelessness. In, like, right now, tomorrow I'll be testifying before the state legislature on the homeless bill of rights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to cover what's being done to really try to address this, and also what are the failures, and why did these efforts fail, and also, you know, how did individuals, through their own work and through the work of organizations, overcome homelessness and become housed. So I think you need to cover both, you know, what's happening institutionally, in government and in foundations, and in places like the National Coalition for Family Homelessness, or National Coalition for Law and Homelessness, and also in individuals. And you do that, you cover both angles.
Yeah, I think it's important to give a voice to the community, but also I think that we need to come up with, you know, like, solutions. This is advocacy journalism, so we're helping educate our readers about what's really going on, but also giving a voice to those who normally are traditionally marginalized by the status quo, like Boston Globe, Boston Herald, and talking about issues that are extremely important. One of my issues I think that are so the Long Island closing, it's still been a major editorial focus for Spare Change since I've been editor. Also addiction. We've lost a lot of our brothers and sisters from opioid and heroin addiction. In fact, we did another story, the cover story this past issue of Spare Change is on, we call it Dragon Slayers. And that is gentleman that I met it was called Sober Grid. It was a launch party. He is a recovering heroin addict. His name is Travis the Featherman Snyder, and he was really set on going on the record and telling his story, and it's helped so many people. And I think that when you're dealing with addiction, you have people sort of from a governmental or from a doctors telling you how to get sober. They don't listen. People don't listen. But when you talk to a fellow addict or someone who has gone through it, people do listen. And I think it's, you know, my perspective from addiction is to really just talk to people who are struggling with heroin addiction or with opioid addiction. And, you know, the guy, Travis, who I interviewed in the story, gives really clear direction as to how to handle loved ones who are dealing with this fatal disease. So we're going to play, actually, I did a video interview with Travis, and we'll play that now.
Sober Grid is important for many reasons. I think the number one reason why Sober Grid is becoming important in the lives of recovering people is because it gives them a place that they can access at any time, where they can come and they can connect and they can share and they can draw inspiration from other people who are going through the similar things that they're going through. So you can have people that are in, you know, 30 years of recovery, and you can have somebody that's literally one day into sobriety have a place at any time that they can access, where they don't necessarily have to go into a room with strangers and pour their life out, where they can go and they can simply, they don't have to make any comments, they can read, They can post about what's going on in their life, and then they can get some instant feedback from people who really understand and truly care. My bottom was I was at the end of a 2-month-long drug binge. I received a settlement from a car accident of a substantial amount of money. I was in the darkest place. I was literally locked into my room. I was doing heroin. I was doing meth. I was seeing the darkness. In my mind, I was on my way out. I felt so hopeless. I felt helpless. It was in the middle of winter, and December 22nd, 2011, I managed to get myself in well enough condition that I was actually going to go out and eat with my father. And as I was walking out the door, 2 police officers were there and arrested me. So my bottom literally happened in a jail cell on a concrete floor, 16 days in a psychotic state, going through opiate withdrawal, where I completely surrendered everything that I thought I knew about life. I let it go, and I let a higher power into my life. My life has changed in the most magnificent ways. I think one of the most incredible ways is that through living with a positive attitude and through outwardly expressing gratitude and kind of getting the big picture about life, I've been able to grow upon relationships. I've been able to see things that I haven't seen before. I've been able to actually access that giving part of life that I've neglected for so long in my addiction, where I understand the power of sharing encouragement, sharing love with people, being supportive. I also understand that the life that I live and the choices that I made were all, and the things that had happened to me were all a direct result of my own choices. So I'm able to wholeheartedly embrace who I was, what I went through, and now who I have become. And I've been able to embrace my life and the ability to share through my experiences, share my strength, giving hope to others that there is a new way of life.
My name is Travis. I am the Featherhawk, and I am on Sober Grid.
So that was one of several testimonials that I filmed in New York City for this project, and it was amazing. It was amazing to be able to hear the experience, strength, and hope from various people. A lot of tears, because I think that this addiction with heroin, some with alcohol, some with prescription painkillers, it has affected a lot of our lives and our loved ones' lives, and so it's a big issue for me. And I'm grateful to be able to be in a position to write about it and spare change. I think it affects a lot of our vendors too.
Absolutely.
So from looking from that perspective, do you feel like things have gotten worse in regards to you talked about sort of like governmental and sort of services for the homeless and for people with addiction issues? What are your thoughts on the current state of things now?
I think the government's failing. I think there are so many bureaucratic steps that you have to go through that you get frustrated and you abandon the effort. Recently, I've had 2 of our vendors, not with addiction, but with housing, say, this is just too hard. There are so many barriers. The government should be trying to make it as easy and as streamlined as possible to get help, whether it's for addiction, for housing, for food. The government has a totally unrealistic picture of what people need to survive. And that's one of the things I'll be talking about tomorrow before the state legislature. I mean, to think that you can survive off of what the amount of money the government gives you to buy food is laughable. And I think it's important to point that out. And I think people, and I think a lot of people in government just want the issue of homelessness to go away. They just don't want to see it. They want to sweep it under the rug, and that's a disgrace. These are human beings who had problems and who can overcome their problems if they're given the proper help and aid. And we should be a voice pushing both organizations and individuals to step up and do it.
So you talked about the Homeless Bill of Rights. What exactly is the Homeless Bill of Rights?
It's a piece of legislation that is being introduced in this House of Representatives that it says that you can't discriminate against people based on their status as homeless. So it would prevent someone who is hiring from taking into consideration the fact that a person is homeless. Right now, the fact of the matter is that if you don't have a permanent address and a phone number and you're on a job interview, the odds are that you're not going to get that job.
Yeah.
It's one tiny aspect of the bill is to say you can't do that, and if you get caught doing that, you will be penalized. You know, it's the same thing as the civil rights movement was. It basically says all the things that house people have a right to, homeless people have a right to, and you can't withhold it from them simply because they're homeless.
And that's one of the good things about Spare Change is that we don't discriminate. The vendors, that some of them are homeless, some of them are formerly homeless. It's a hand up to help them and hopefully go to the next level. We do want the vendors to go off and to get a job.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that. We've seen it happen. We've also seen vendors who have been loyal to us over the years, and that's great too, because I think that it's a legitimate job and it does help people who have been sort of kicked to the curb and not kind of overlooked for whatever reason because they don't have an address or that they were homeless or they're in a transition period in our life. So, you know, anything else, Vincent, that you like things that you think are important that we should talk about on the show?
Well, I think there's something, you know, the overwhelming thing that I think we need to deal with is to get the public to realize that the myths about why people are homeless are just that, myths. That, you know, there's a belief that all homeless people are drug addicts, alcoholics, mentally disturbed, whatever. And the fact of the matter is that nothing could be further from the truth. You know, there just came out a study that basically indicates that most low-income Americans have about 9 days worth of liquid assets before they would lose their home if they lost their job. And you know, it's poverty and the lack of decent wage and a lack of jobs that's driving homelessness. And yes, some people are homeless because of addiction and reasons like that. But that's not the reality of it. And the largest growing population of homelessness is family homelessness.
Right.
And people, and you know, and you write about that and you educate people on that. And I think when people realize the reasons that people are homeless, it will make them more willing to try to do something about it.
And just speaking of family homelessness, we did a story on family homelessness. There we go. In the current edition of Spare Change. This issue is selling extremely well, so you better get your copies sooner rather than later, which is good, because that's a good sign that the paper is selling well. So Vincent, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a fantastic mentor and person to work with on this project. You've been someone that I really look up to and have a lot of respect for, so I want to thank you so much.
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you too. I think you've done amazing things with the paper. I can leave the job not worried that the paper is not going to be quality operation. I have amazing respect for your talent and for your dedication to this. And I know for you it's a calling, and I admire that, and I thank you for
Thank you,
everything
Vincent.
you've done.
Well, speaking of calling, consider this a possible calling for you if you're watching this TV show and we're looking for an executive director. I'll show you how if you think you have the qualifications and you feel the calling to join our team, I'll show you where to go on our website. So you go to the homepage, sparechangenews.net. At the very top, executive director job listing. You click on that. There you go. And we kind of get the rundown of what it takes to be our executive director. I will not lie, it's definitely a difficult job, and I'm sure Vincent will agree with that.
But it's a rewarding job.
It's a very rewarding job, and if you feel like that you have the qualifications to be our next executive director, we want you. And I had a similar calling to my job as editor, and if you get that desire to help out and to help people make a better life and to hopefully work on dealing with issues related to homelessness, this is the job for you. So again, Vincent, it's been a pleasure working with you. And any last thoughts?
Apply. It's something that you will thank yourself for doing when you see what you can do to help these people. And if you know someone who you think might be qualified, tell them about it. Get the word out.
And if the listing is on sparechangenews.net, and also the vendors, a lot of them know what's going on. If you have a Spare Change News vendor that you go to, talk to the vendor, and they can direct you where to go. We are definitely looking for the